بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. To my brothers and sisters in Islam and my brothers and sisters in humanity. Before I commence on the subject of the matter of discussion today, I want to say thank you and to extend my gratitude for those who have visited my project on YouTube. And I hope that you have achieved some benefits from the different talks I have been giving on the institution of marriage. Among the feedback I've had and the comments, specifically today, I want to deal with one of them. That is the request I have to do a program for the young people, the children of our mothers and fathers. I'm very much aware of the fitna that is taking place among the young people today. They spend half their time on social media, and even recently there has been some comments going on Facebook and Instagram about the control of that they should apply to the projects and the programs that the younger children have to engage in. And this has been the education that our children are going through. And, although some of the blame is attributed to these social media platforms, I would say that the parents also has a responsibility in what their children are paying attention to. And social media is saying this, but they're not advising the parents how they should go about controlling what the children are spending a lot of time reading, playing games, doing all kinds of things rather than paying attention to their own development, educationally, etc. That being said, today I'm about to use a phrase. The phrase is that you cannot give what you haven't got. And our parents, our mothers and fathers, the advice I have to offer today on this subject is based upon the knowledge of self. How much of us as parents think about the excellence in which we were created and the gifts that Almighty God has given us, the faculties that He has given us. For example, seeing, hearing, speech, tasting, the ability to use these faculties for the benefit of ourselves and mankind. Have we, as parents, sit with our children and educate them how to use these different gifts that God has given us on the basis of good and evil? What do we look at? Is it beneficial? Is it praiseworthy? Or is it to our own disadvantage or disadvantage of others? What we listen to? What do we say to others? Bearing in mind that whatever we look at, whatever we hear, whatever we say, whatever we taste, affects our heart. A decision comes from the heart. And if we should sit with our children and begin to advise them how to use these faculties, what to look at, what to listen to, what to pay attention to when we speak, what we say, how we say, to whom we speak, respect for your parents, respect for the elders, respect for yourselves, that will be a beginning in terms of the development of our children, how they behave. Rather than spending half their time on social media platforms, they would become more attentive to the good and the evil that is going on in the world today. Our ability that God has given us to reason. When the Creator created mankind, the angels, and the jinns, He gave them certain abilities. Have we thought about this? For those who know, then how do you use them? For those who do not know, I would like to pass this information to you and advise you how they should be used. When Allah created mankind and the jinns and the angels, He divided 3 different abilities among these members of His creation. To the angels, He gave them reason, so they behave implicitly. They do not think, they follow the advice and the task that God has given to them, how to put them into action. To the animals, He gave them desires. Look at the way the animals behave. They hunt, they kill, they behave, is based upon desire. To the human beings, He gave us both desire and reason. Now, we have the ability to reason, to think about the things we do, the things we say, where we go, how we speak to each other, how we behave among ourselves, our families. Hence, sometimes we criticize each other as if your behavior is like an animal. Yes, of course. If your behavior is if our behavior is based upon desire, then it is right to justify to be criticized as an animal. So if we have this knowledge, we'll be very careful how we behave. The same applies if you have this knowledge, you would educate your children to behave, that their behavior should be based upon reason rather than desires. Because most of the things that mankind does, I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but a lot of things that mankind does is based upon desire rather than reason. Hence, we have turmoil in the earth. Look at what our children are doing today. As for our Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American, people who come from different parts of the world to this country, to the West, to America, to Germany, to the Netherlands, in the 50s and 60s, they came with a culture. I speak specifically about Great Britain. We came here with a culture. And our children was guided by the culture we had brought from where we came from. In the 60s, the rules in this country changed. The government changed these rules. So the control of our children was taken from our hands and given back to the government. You could not apply corporal punishment to our children as a parent. Neither did the school. So the children was free to behave as they like. We become confused. How can we discipline our children without using certain deterrent that we are being accustomed to? It's been taken out of our hands. But if we had the knowledge of what I'm speaking about here, and the understanding how to use these faculties of hearing, seeing, speaking, tasting what we eat, how we talk to people, what we say to them, what we listen to, what we look at, rather than seeing what we look at, and control these faculties for the purpose of proper behavior, then I'm sure today the fitting that is going on among the youth today would not be taking place, because they will be properly guided that when they develop to an age of responsibility, they would have a good understanding of how to behave. It's not too late to apply these teachings of reason. When one behaves with reason, you're always looking at the situation, the advantage and disadvantage of the application of action. What's the end result? When you behave based upon desires, it's free for all. We do not think of the impact it has on others, in the society, in the family, to the world at large. So we behave like animals rather than behave based upon reason. Almighty God has given us the ability to choose. We have the ability to choose. And because of this, the angels don't choose, the animals don't choose. We are the only one who has the ability to choose. And whenever we make a choice, the end result is based upon what? Accountability. We have to account for what we do based upon the choices we make. If we as parents understand this and educate our children likewise, then the choice they make will not be based upon desire. It will be based upon reason. I know in the early days of the 60s and 50s, parents, ourselves, our children would say, oh, my mother said we can't do this, my father said we cannot do that. Now today is free for all because the television becomes the source of education rather than the advice and the strict control the parents has over their children. Knowledge is important, but also understanding is more important because having knowledge without the proper understanding do not produce a good result among ourselves. The understanding of right and wrong. God didn't create us without He laid down laws. And for those who are Muslims, we know that. Difference between the Maruf and the Munkar. What has been legislated as correct, what pleases the Creator, and what He has forbidden. We know that. But yet Muslim children are astray. They are in gangs. They are producing knife and killing each other. Why is this happening? Because the children is not controlled by the parents, not based upon oppression, but based upon knowledge, that the parents sit with the children and advise them according to what is right and what is wrong. As we say, what is halal and what is haram. So, on many occasions, what is taking place among ourselves is based upon anger. And this is a subject that I want to talk about also today. What is anger? Anger is the reality of the boiling of the blood of the heart to seek revenge. Now, there are categories of anger. There are degrees. There is tarif, which is insufficient anger. Istira, which is excessive anger. Iqtidal, which is praiseworthy anger. Now, these are the three categories of anger. When they have been applied, they bring about different results. Now, let's go to the person who is captivated by any of these three degrees of anger. There are also three categories of people who comes on the spell of anger. If the person who has insufficient anger is angry with someone, then what happens? The blood of the heart expands to the face because the person to whom the angry person is angry with is above the category of the person. In other words, the angry person could be the employee, and the angry person is angry with his employer. So he is in a bit of a situation where he can't explain himself. He cannot, get out of control. So the blood can expand to his face. So you notice the face would have a different countenance. Depends on the color of the face, the person, the face will become red. And he is tattered. He's very careful what he says because he doesn't want to lose his job. Now, if the person is angry with someone below him, that's a different kettle of fish, as they say. The heart contracts from the face, the blood goes from the face to the heart, and the person becomes confused. He's argumentative, but his voice tone is dropped, and he's in a state of paranoia. He doesn't want to show anger to the person because the person is above his status. If the person is angry with someone and he's not sure whether the person is above or below this status, now he's in a state of confusion between the state of contraction and expansion. And this is the state in counseling we say he's in a state of semi-lunacy. Brothers and sisters, we have to understand what I'm saying here, because anger is a status which, when the Messenger of Allah was asked about, and the man said, "Oh, Messenger of Allah, advise me." He says, "Do not get angry." He repeated the question, "Advise me, O Messenger of Allah." He said, "Do not get angry." He repeated a third time. The Prophet said, "Do not get angry." Now, if you go to the Quran, you will find that the opposite of anger is patience. And the people who exercise patience, there are many verses in the Quran that say Allah is with the person who is patient. So we should be very, very, very careful when something arises in our life that brings about anger, because we know that excessive anger, this is chaos. When a person becomes excessively angry, then it brings about turmoil in the land. Many of the divorce and problems that take place within the marriage relationship that goes from husband and wife fighting and sometimes killing each other. War starts, community becomes in turmoil. All happens because one set of people is angry with the other. So we should be very careful when we find ourselves being subdued by excessive anger. The third and the final category of anger is one that is controlled. This is the anger that pleases Allah. We're angry with something and we use our faculties and reason to deal with it. We do not become explosive. We do not treat one person above each other. We try to find solution to the problem. So I want to leave my audience with 3 basic fundamental guidance, which are, when put into action, you will find that our behavior will change and we become praiseworthy. Reflection, consideration, and choice. Reflection, consideration, and choice. And if we use these 3 sets of words, put them into action, to reflect on the situation, to consider how we should act, and then make a choice, it always turn out to be praiseworthy in our behavior towards a situation that brings anger to the fore. So may Allah Azza wa Jal help us that we may have a better understanding of life. And I ask Allah to bless our parents, one and all, that they may have the tawfiq, the ability to understand what has been said today and begin to take charge of their children, to advise them according to what is correct and according to what is prohibited, whether it's legally, from a legal point of view, secularly, or religious point of view, what is lawful, because we all will have to account to our Creator sometimes how we deal with the rights and obligation of our children, and of course the children obligation to the parents. So may Allah bless us and reward us for whatever we do in this life and give us a good reward in the hereafter. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم.